All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to it's New Year's Eve? Yes, welcome to the Wednesday show, New Year's Eve, here on the Bear in Mind channel. I, as always, am your host, Alfie Animus, and this is the Associated Guest Show. I said everything in reverse. It's been an exciting day. I'm on the time I'm supposed to be on, so let's see if we can get a full show going. Today, we're going to watch that woke interview I meant to watch the other day. Media defends Stranger Things, which is fine, but they're calling everyone who criticizes it, even not criticizing, gay will. Everything is phobic. And then finally, if we get to it, we'll get to the Tim Walz conspiracy on the murder of that one lady who voted against the Democrats, who is also a Democrat. So let's get into it.
There's no scientific evidence to prove that a black woman and a white woman are genetically different, right? This is like...
What are you talking about?
And I'm not going to lie. So about 10 years ago, there was a YouTuber, a lefty trans YouTuber by the name of Milo, I want to say Stewart. I thought that's why this was famous, because Milo had now fully transitioned. Apparently that's not the case, at least as far as I can find.
Guys, prepare yourselves. I'm about to show you one of the craziest and honestly most frustrating woke clips I have seen in quite some time, so let's get into it.
Ladies, stop doing this to yourself. Her face is way too saturated. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I had to say it. It's too much.
Guys, before we get into today's video, please like and subscribe. Today, we're going to be reacting to a clip from an interview. Now, this interviewer is named Paula Ramos. She is a correspondent for Telemundo and MSNBC. She's interviewing a pro-natalist couple by the name of Malcolm and Simone Collins. Now, they're pro-natalist, which means they are pro-birth. They're having a ton of babies. They advocate that other people do the same.
Which is fine. I mean, these people look a little too American Gothic for my taste. At least she does. But that's everyone's own prerogative, okay? You're allowed to be whoever you want, as long as you can afford it and no one's in any danger, any real danger. Sure, why not? Go ahead. The matching shirts are kind of cute.
They want to up the birth rate. Now, they get into a conversation about genetics because of this, and Paula, because she is a woke leftist, wants to make this about race, as so many woke leftists do, and she brings up the topic of the difference in genetics between black people and white people. Now, she believes there is no difference. Let's watch the clip.
You've said things like black women are biologically different than white women.
Yes, they have different fertility windows. They have a higher rate of fertility complications. 50%
But there's
higher
no
rate.
scientific evidence to prove that.
See, and this is retarded, okay? Yes, we are all equal. We are all equals. We are in this world, and we are equals, and we should be perceived as equals. That being said, and this is why I miss the 90s mentality, while we are all equals, we have differences, and that's okay. And we should celebrate those differences. Our differences, whether it be race or all those things that you're born as and you can't control, as well as personality differences, everything that makes us different makes us unique. So long as we're not part of the mainstream hive mind Trapper Keeper for 2000 episode of South Park kind of Borg without thinking we're Borg mentality. We should celebrate our differences. It's okay that we're different. It doesn't mean we're not equal. And this is one thing that drives me crazy. Anytime you say that genetically men and women are different, or the different races are different, even the obvious differences, people, mostly liberal white women, start to freak out and say, oh, why do you think you're better than me? That's not what people are saying. Some people are saying that. People like Nick Fuentes or whoever, the Groypers, they might be saying that kind of shit. Okay, let them stay over there. Let them have their moment. The more you bitch about them, the more power they're going to get. People are going to get curious. People are going to go over there, and people are going to be like, oh, that's actually a good point. That's how that stupid-ass manosphere started. That's how Pearl, the one that looks like Hugh Grant left some semen somewhere in America, that's how she has a career. She's a grifter. But anyway, that being said, let's continue.
A black woman and a white woman are genetically different, right?
Okay.
They are.
Let's pause for a moment. Let's go ahead and acknowledge something. I'm half black. I'm half white. Do we think there's no genetic differences between black people and white people? Let's have a look at something. Let's each take a look at our hands right now. It doesn't matter what race.
And yes, again, genetically, yes. And she's about to say, genetically, we're different. That's why, some people's hair is different. That's why there's white people with curly hair. That's why people have different eye color. That's why people have different hair color. At least, white people do. That's why people of different races have different kinds of hair, the things that you can do differently. There are ways to crimp or perm those hair to make them seem similar to other races. But at the end of the day, we have differences, and that's okay. Again, 100%. It's okay. We're still equal. We're just different.
You are, where you're from, anything like that. Do you think your genetics are different than somebody's with a different skin color than you? Absolutely, they are. Now, Malcolm, of course, brings up fertility windows. He brings up the maternal mortality rate and how there's different complications in birth between different races. There are different diseases we are predisposed to based on our race and our genetics. And the fact that she says there's no scientific evidence that black women and white women are different is deeply concerning.
And people will just spout this kind of bullshit with no evidence, with no facts behind them. But the scary thing is the same thing with a few other movements like the vaxxers and anti-vaxxers, at least when it comes to COVID. You will have people, even when evidence comes out to the contrary of their points, they will still say there's no scientific evidence, or, oh, those scientists are on this list. I thought it was good to be standout. Like, it was good to be different. It was good to speak out against the machine. Like, those pharmacists who were put on lists during COVID were speaking out against the machine. Remember when that was a good thing? Especially, they're not crazy people. A couple of them were. But for the most part, they weren't crazy people. They had been in the game for decades, some of them.
Especially since she is supposed to be a journalist, an American journalist. Okay.
See, and that's the thing. Most journalists these days, they're opinion writers who are fronting as journalists. This is not journalism.
Is like,
What are you
no, they are.
talking about?
No.
Like literally, there are genes that code for their skin color.
What,
There are genes that...
Again, this is like government data. This is right? This is the National Institute of Health. This is the American Medical Association. Like, there is no scientific evidence to prove that.
I think she's a little bit misguided, and I think this is
Retarded.
where leftists sort of trip over themselves a little
She
bit.
drank the
They
Kool-Aid.
think to acknowledge any sort of genetic difference is to acknowledge, I guess, racial superiority or a racial difference that could give way to...
And that's not the fact. The real fact is, this kind of mentality is what leads people to freak out and accuse Sydney Sweeney of being an SS Nazi soldier because she was in a Gene commercial. You can't make this shit up. I mean, you can, but these days life is beyond parody.
Things like racism against black people. That is not the case.
Speaking of beyond parody, my God, the JD Vance memes. These are freaking amazing. I have to hear the music. I agree. Someday I'll grow weary of the JD Vance memes, but my God, the fact that he loves them makes them even better to me. Like, I like two things. When people are cool about things and they're awesome and they put them out themselves, sometimes he even makes them himself, which is amazing. But also when people absolutely hate things, like the sombrero means for, whoever the House Minority Leader is.
We are different inherently
Hakeem
in
Jeffries.
our genetics, especially on the basis of race, and that's okay to acknowledge. It's not then an acknowledgement that one race is better than the other or more superior to another. You are just different, and that's a fact.
Yes.
Now, Malcolm, Simone, and Paula, they're all different, and they're...
And the main reason I want to watch this is because I saw a clip of this. This is the same clip, of course, but I wanted to share it with y'all, if y'all haven't seen it. This lady, I'm pointing with my finger like y'all can fucking see it. This lady, if I may call you that, is about to say the dumbest, most pointed comment to try to get people after these two nice folk. Now, these two may be demented psychos. I don't know. But on this, they seem very calm and rational. But this person's a little like me. When you know someone's retarded and they insist that the facts are on their side, even though they're either misreading the facts or they were posted on a site that purposefully misinterpreted what the person said by leaving a word or two out or adding a few words of their own. People like this can bend anything. It's like the Cartman fish sticks joke all over again. I make a lot of South Park
references. And there seems to be racial differences between Malcolm Simone and Paula. To acknowledge those genetic differences doesn't make you a bigot.
No.
Let's keep watching.
That's a big problem, right?
Now, if you keep pointing them out, yes, but if you're having a discussion on the topic of genetics, and someone says something stupid like, "Oh, genetically we're no different," that's fucking retarded.
No, there's no scientific
and that's why I
things
asked.
like IQ differences. Black people are genetically different from other populations.
And I'll say that again. There is no scientific evidence to.
Where is she getting her evidence?
Again, post a source. I've looked all over this lady's social media. There are no sources. There are no sources.
Where is she getting her evidence? She mentions the AMA, she mentions government institutions. They, in fact, do acknowledge the difference in genetics between people of different races.
Yes, they do.
Prove that, right? And as people
No,
that.
I'm sorry, I'm stating, do you want to ask an AI if there's scientific evidence?
I want to ask.
No,
this
because
is
what you're
purely based
stating
on
is just factually incorrect. Humans are genetically diverse. It's not a bad thing.
Also, genetically, I love how people from different regions say things differently. Again, we're all different. It's okay. But I can laugh at it.
I'm not saying it's better. No, I'm not saying it's a bad or a good thing. I'm saying there is no scientific evidence.
And you're
my
wrong.
gosh.
You're supposed
you
to be a
couldn't more
journalist. Do some journalism.
misguided than this. And I like that he's sort of like jumping out of his skin. You can tell he sort of wants to rip it.
Well, yeah, because and the fact that she's saying so calm and she's so confident, and the fact that she's a fucking dipshit moron is amazing to me.
His hair out because he's talking to a brick wall at this moment. This is a prime example of talking to a brick
She's
wall.
a brick.
He even says, "Do you want to go and turn to AI?"
Wow.
Like, please, let's go to another.
Also, don't go to AI. Like, it's good for a quick reference, but especially if you're going to get into an argument or something like this, maybe do some actual research.
Source of information in order to confirm this for you before we continue this conversation. Because if we can't agree on the basic fact that there are genetic differences between people of different races, we cannot continue to have this conversation. And the fact that she says there is no evidence, I think what she really means is no matter how much evidence you show her, her opinion is not going to change on this. And what that means is you're dealing with an ideologue. You're dealing with somebody who is stuck in their position, and that position is not going to move no matter how much you try to change it, no matter how much you show them, no matter how much research, no matter how many studies you put in front of their face. This opinion will not change because her framework and her worldview is informed by wokeism, which says that everything is equitable and everyone is equal in every single way, shape, and form on the basis of race, gender, sexuality, orientation, anything you want to throw out. And then she therefore becomes an immovable object in this conversation.
It's about to
Let's
come.
continue.
Here it
I'm
comes.
saying that is a factually.
He's saying that there is scientific.
There is scientific evidence. There is
Based on-
overwhelming scientific
based
evidence.
on-
Overwhelming.
and this is-
Basics. No. This is like saying the sky is not blue. Like, it is genes that code their skin color, right? Those genes are obviously different in them than they are in us.
This is what you learn in, I don't know, first, second grade, maybe third. When did we start doing Punnett squares and talking about Mendel and P's and running through the different ideas, the basic fundamentals of genetics? She does not need to be a journalist. Let's say that right now. Journalism card revoked.
How is that not science? That's just like a basic fact. The genes that code their skin color, their level of melanin production, are different from my genes that
And I
code
think,
melanin production.
and that's precisely why I was asking this question, because I think for some people that do believe like you, that
For some people that do believe like
You see that shit? For some people who do believe, like you know, the people that actually went to the website that she's referencing. Wow. For some people who believe like you.
It's
Let's see
so
how she,
interesting that
let's see
she's
how she
making
finishes
this
the
into
sentence.
a moral attack. Let's be honest, that's what she's doing. She is really thinking that this guy is racist, and probably inherently so because of his whiteness. And she's pushing a belief set onto him. Except that belief set is literal, fact-based science.
people are genetically different, that has historically been used to promote racial hierarchies.
Yes, it has been used to promote racial hierarchy. But saying that that's what he believes in, that people are different, therefore this race is better than that race, or this gender is better than that gender, it's just disingenuous. That's not what the guy's saying. And who knows? This guy may have some Hugo Boss suits in his closet. Who knows? But at least as far as what's being said right now in this interview, there's nothing to suggest that. All he's suggesting is that we are different. I mean, people in the same race have genetic differences. This is it's just a moronic, lost. Like this is like arguing science with deep, devout, by the book Christians in like the 70s and 80s of the 1800s.
Right, and that's why I'm asking you, because
But so what
because
makes
you do
Okay, so there's the moment that we get really a view into her mind and into why we are now having this conundrum in conversation.
It's ridiculous, and it's just a bad faith argument. People who argue like this, they do not want your opinion. They have an objective in this interview to get a certain point across to make you look a certain kind of way. It's like that Jordan Peterson interview with that blonde British bitch. It was all a got you conversation, and he flipped it on back on her. That was back when Jordan Peterson was pretty based. And then I think he had a couple of strokes, and he's been kind of out there since then. I still think he's a good guy. But again, he kind of started becoming just a little bit enough for people to be like, oh, well, look at this. He had a couple of strokes. The strokes change you. But anyway, let's continue to Miss Vera Dark. But anyway, y'all, make sure you go, drop a few watches on Miss Amala here. She's pretty decent. I don't watch her a whole lot, but every now and then she'll have a decent take on some videos or a better cut of the video, like today.
Clearly, the reception of Stranger Things Season 5 isn't what the Duffer Brothers or Netflix wanted. Things are not going very well for them, as these scores for this series are now tanking. But of course, Hollywood is running damage control, saying that we are ists and phobes and we're review bombing it unfairly, even though that's just not the case. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, the second we dislike something and the second we rate it poorly, they claim review bombing, that we are ists and phobes and nobody is being fair. And sure, I do think that the gay scene is a reason why the scores are tanking, but that's because it was acted so poorly.
And I'll give them that. I won't give them that. Look, while it was the most blatant example, this whole season, from the start, first of all, the 18-month time skip, which was probably just there to give a little bit of leeway for how much older the fucking people who were 10 and 11 when this started, albeit, oh shit. The black little sister, I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. I can't remember either of the little sisters' names. She was like 8 or 9 when this started. Now I'm pretty sure she's like 18, 19. The 10, 11-year-old kids in the series, they're supposed to be like 16. In real life, they're like 22, 23. And don't even get me started on Nancy and her love triangle. Those people are like 30. But overall, like the whole time skip, one, I know it was there so Max could heal a little bit, maybe, and to account for how much older the kids are in real life. But overall, this season's just weaker. Like the first season was great. I very much like the first season. The second season was pretty good. Okay. The episode with sister or whatever, what's her number, 8, was the worst episode in the series until this one. But it was an altogether pretty good season. Season 3 was kind of doo-doo. I like Maya Hawke, at least as far as her acting. She reminds me of some of the cool girls that I hung out with when I was in school, the ones that are awesome friends. And season 4 was amazing. It was arguably as good, if not better, than the first season. And then this one had some big shoes to fill, but it's It went straight past Mass Effect 3 and went straight to Mass Effect Andromeda. I'm sorry. It did. But the gay scene was really just the cherry on top. Everything else, there were sprinkles, there was whipped cream, all the stuff, and then boom, a big old wheel-shaped cherry. And I hate that anytime you criticize something, and the funny thing is, even gay people are criticizing it because it's horribly unrealistic. This is in the middle of the AIDS epidemic. That was started by Fauci, mind you, in the 80s. So someone would have mentioned it. I know putting it in there would have been something, but you should have had at least one person, I don't care who it was, any one person not being so cool with it or being standoffishly acting cool with it, but you can tell something's up. But they love their friend. But you could tell something's up, at the very least. Okay, again, this is the 80s. This series, for the first 2 seasons, was very 80s. The 3rd season was a bit more 90s. The 4th season was just a good season, but it wasn't very 80s, because every single season had an 80s style theme. And while they were kind of leaning into the Friday, the Nightmare on Elm Street vibes, that was about all the 80s that was in there. Hey, thanks, StreamHub. But anyway, like I said, there are a lot of problems with this season. They're putting way too much story in this when they needed to tie up all the loose ends. I know we still got one more feature-length, probably 2.5-hour long episode to come. But it's got a lot on its back. And you can't base a subpar or shitty season and let the final episode just knock it out of the park. It's not going to happen. I can guarantee you. This is going to be a Game of Thrones. This is going to go out with a whimper instead of a croom.
It was paced so poorly. Why is it that you felt that that was the best scene right before the end of the episode? We're not talking about just the end of a random season. This is the end of the show in its entirety.
And that's another thing. I don't care so much about the end of the show. I care about they're like, oh man, we've only got a little bit of time left. We have to do it. Vecna's going to do it here in this, whatever the time frame was. And he's like, okay, guys, I need to tell you something. I need to tell you all something. And then the very next scene, you can tell some time has passed. Everyone's gathered in the room. And he's doing this long, drawn-out thing where you can literally, I mean, you can't literally see the world ending in the background, but the world's ending in the background. It's very close. Vecna's approaching ever nearer. I can almost hear the ticking of the clock. And he decides to choose now to do this instead of the last 18 fucking months. That's great, Corrupt Frog. Thanks for your input. I appreciate you.
Entirety, it just wasn't placed well. If it was even in episode 1,
if you don't care, you don't have to watch it.
But it's just not a good scene in general. They went from having what I would consider a really good coming out scene with Robin and Steve in season 3 to a really abysmal one in season 5. And by the way, I think it's important to point out that season 3 wasn't review bombed over the gay scene. Most people were perfectly fine with it because it fit in well, it was acted well, it was written well.
Yeah, and it really was. It really was. It was a really good scene. It was like rip the Band-Aid off, just like she said. Robin's a pretty well written character, but now in hindsight, it's clearly that she was just put into the series in season 3 just to have someone to help Will come out of the closet, which isn't a bad thing, but the way they're doing it is very smack you over the head with it.
This one isn't. But there's more problems that we have than just this gay scene, but the media isn't going to say that because, of course, they want to push a narrative that we are ists and phobes and that we are being unfair because they constantly do this. They also had done it in part with Game of Thrones, saying fans are never going to be happy because George hasn't finished his work, and so they're blaming.
No, and there will always be those fans that will never be happy. Okay, there were fans that didn't that still complain about Return of the Jedi. There are people who haven't seen the Clone Wars who still complain about the prequels, which is their right to do so because they weren't as good as the others. It was very boring. That's just what you want to hear is politics, but it's very world building and lore expanding. And then, of course, the sequel series, Disney just botched it all together by not having any kind of plan together. They just wanted to throw random movies, which is kind of fine. I mean, if you want to do it in kind of like the newsreel style that the show Clone Wars was done in. But again, Game of Thrones, they ran out of source material, and they very quickly proved that they were really good at adapting the finished works of George R.R. Martin, but they weren't good at taking his notes and doing anything with it. People started teleporting, plot lines started just quickly skipping from thing to thing, and almost in an instant, Khaleesi, or what was it, Daenerys, was just mad at the bells. Like, they had shown a few small things, but nothing to take her all the way from the savior and of all peoples, the breaker of chains and all this, the person who didn't like killing people who weren't evil slaveholders, to just, fuck, let's kill them all.
Blaming him for the failure of the show, and they're trying to take out their anger on him because of Game of Thrones is destroyed. He'll face the consequences of his actions or lack thereof. It was just a terrible time to be a Game of Thrones fan, but the show just sucked. It ended in a really poor way, and it needed more.
And my biggest thing was they turned Tyrion into a dipshit moron, and all Jon Snow ever said was, "But she's my queen."
Multiple more seasons to get to that point for it to make sense. But yes, the Hollywood media has now fallen back on its favorite shield yet again, and this time it's being deployed to protect one of Netflix's most valuable franchises. According to Variety, the backlash to Stranger Things Season 5 isn't about pacing, bloated storytelling, poor character prioritization, or a collapsing narrative. No, it is.
No, it is. It's 100% about all of that. It like everyone I've ever watched, and I watch a lot of the quote-unquote chuds that these people are talking about, specifically your critical drinker, nerdrotic, and all that. They're not saying anything like this. They're mentioning it, and they're making a few jokes, but primarily their focus is on how disjoint. Not only was it a bad start, having the time skip, because in reality it should have started right after that, because it looked like the worlds were already merging. But for it to be 18 months later and life kind of just went back to normal was a poor choice from the drop.
Is review bombing. This show just kind of sucks now. Dark on Netflix has always been 100 times better. I highly recommend you go and watch that if you have not before. But yeah, we are talking about main characters like Mike completely being sidelined.
Yes.
It would have been so much more
11 was
emotionally
sidelined
impactful if Mike was in Holly's place, and then you had the Max escape scene. If you had,
and that's what they really should have done. But they wanted people who were actually kids in real life to be in jeopardy. I can already see it, because the people who are portraying kids are, in their 20s now and don't look at all like kids. But yeah, they should have done something more like that. They should have, while I like the fat kid, he's becoming pretty much, he's one of my favorite characters in this season, so naturally he's probably going to die by the end of it. But yeah, it's just, it feels like another example of The Last Jedi, to where they kind of just threw something together. They had a few things they wanted to get across, but for the most part, they just wanted to get it over with. So I guess a little more Game of Thronesy in that sense.
Him falling from the sky and looking at Nancy and his friends trying to get to him. It would have been so much better. They've given Holly way too much screen time. And you also have characters like 11 not really mattering anymore. Yeah, you have like this bloated storytelling. You have way too many characters. It just hasn't gone in the right direction. And I think that they're sort of panicking behind the scenes now. But it says season 5's audience score on Rotten Tomatoes dropped sharply into the mid 50% range within days of the second volume's release, officially landing the season in rotten territory. That's not a rounding error. That's not noise. That's a massive collapse compared to prior seasons, which routinely hovered in the high 80s and 90s with fans. On IMDb, the episode titled The Bridge, the one Variety insists was...
And that's, I will say, that is one of the good parts about this. I wish they had introduced it maybe a season or two earlier, that the Upside Down is just a bridge to whatever this other place is. It's kind of interesting. Also, the fact that the Upside Down is just another place you can go. In the last season, there were all those crazy, like, demon bat things, so on and so forth. And then now it's just kind of like, well, no, it's just a place. It's a very dark place. It's like Eternal Night.
Unfairly targeted is now the lowest
like
rated
going to
episode
Alaska
in
at
the
a certain time of
entire
year.
series. It sits far below the show's usual standards and stands out dramatically from every other episode this season. People watched The Bridge. They saw a world-ending plot grind to a halt so the show could deliver a lengthy...
I am happy they finally gave Will something to do, but you need to, in stuff like this, either characters need to die so you can introduce new characters to keep it fresh, or you need to stop introducing new characters and give some of those jobs that you're giving the new characters to the characters that you're sidelining that are fan favorites. That's just how you do things like this. But anyway, that's all I really want to get into. I want to get in a little bit to this Tim Walz business before I sign off. Oh my God, Benny.
Aware of exactly how lucrative the fraud activity for Medicaid and Medicare reimbursements are inside of the state of Minnesota, it begs a couple of questions about some recent other curious activities in Minnesota. Obviously, you've seen this report from Nick Shirley that's gone thermonuclear viral, outlining exactly how the fraud operations work, how utterly shameless the Somali fraud
That's
is
AI.
in Minnesota, stealing and defrauding the American taxpayers. Everybody is in on it. Fake businesses, sham healthcare companies, sham daycares, all of it meant to funnel hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. And the moment you start asking questions about it, you get the police called on you, obviously. The criminals are here to loot and plunder, just like they do in their home country, where the top occupation of Somalia is pirate.
I still think it's hilarious that some dipshit came in here and said that I'm gay for caring enough to talk about this. And I'm just like, I mean, you cared to pop in here and call me gay. What the fuck are we even talking about?
They've had a nation for hundreds of years. They've have a pristine coastline around the Horn of Africa, and the best occupation they can come up with is pirate. And that's exactly what they're doing here in this country. Welfare rates in Minnesota by households with children. You can see here this line, the black line here and the gray line here are Somali immigrant households. The vast majority of Medicaid, Medicare, welfare payments in Minnesota, of course, go directly to the Somalis. This is the scam. Now, that we know exactly how lucrative this scam is, to the tune of billions of dollars, I mean, the feds are saying that it's $19 billion.
See, and this is the
GDP
part
of
that I'm
Somalia.
worried about.
So they're able to create like a brand new Somalia here using scams in America. You have to start asking some really tough questions. And here's a question that we're going to ask, because our channel covered it more aggressively than any other channel on the entire internet, as far as I know. The killing of Melissa Hortman in Minnesota. What the hell was this exactly? You know, you have this guy showing up in tactical gear.
Very clearly, it looks like he's wearing a mask.
A tactical mask.
Yeah.
A Walter White mask, as far as we can see here. The man who knocks, right? A Walter White mask, and then he murders Melissa Hortman. Now, this is a leader of the Democrats in Minnesota. So that seems strange. Perhaps it's a Republican killing. But of course, the guy had no King's signs in the back of his car.
And he used to work for Tim Walz.
Appointee for Tim Walz.
Yeah.
He worked on a Tim Walz appointed board, and his wife worked for Tim Walz, according to congressional records. So this guy is like thick as thieves with Tim Walz. Now, something very strange happened in the case of Vance Bolater. This is the man who was eventually apprehended and is now charged with the killing of Melissa Hortman. People started to dig into not only his own writings, but Melissa Hortman herself, who was the only Democrat to vote against illegal payments to illegals for Medicaid and Medicare.
And that was the biggest thing for me. The fact that she had just voted against her fellow Democrats. She was the one vote that the Republicans in, what was it, Minnesota, needed to get this bill passed to stop giving, I think it was to stop giving Medicare to illegals. And they killed her. And the fact that the guy was a Republican, but he was put into a position and very knowledgeable, very friendly with Tim Walz, it smelled funny to me too. It was like all of Jesse Smollett's story back in the day. A lot of people went along with it because it supported their narrative. But then some people, and a lot of Republicans were against it just because it went against their narrative. But a lot of people like myself were just like, who goes for a walk in Chicago when it's negative 36 degrees? Huh? And a couple of guys with MAGA hats in Chicago? Like pretty much everything that Chappelle later said to great applause is a lot of the stuff that I was saying to my friends who bought this whole thing.
There was a bill before the House that failed to provide payments to illegal aliens for health care in Minnesota.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Melissa Hortman was the only person who voted against it.
And watch the video of her talking about it just after the vote when it came out that she was the one that voted against it. I thought she was just choked up and sad because she very much believed in the movement, but at the same time she wanted to do what was best for the people that she represented. Now, looking back, she sounds terrified. I hope he plays it.
And Vance Bolater, the individual who murdered her, is on the record, meaning in a letter that he personally wrote and penned to Kash Patel, saying that it was Tim Walz who put him up to this.
Really?
That Tim Walz is the person who had him go murder a woman who stood between Tim Walz and infinity payments for illegals for healthcare in the state, something that we know now is extremely lucrative. Let's go ahead and read right here. Ask Tim Walz if he knows me and see what he says. If he says he doesn't know me or he's ever met me, look in the files and you'll see that Tim Walz personally appointed me to be his governor's workforce board business representative, and that he's also trying to destroy that info from the public record. Then ask Tim.
That's crazy. Tim Walz is not a smart person. But the fact that he's at the center of all this corruption, it just speaks volumes. Minnesota seems to be lost.
Tim Walz, why they kept the shots silent from the media when it first happened.
And I've noticed his retard daughter hasn't been saying a lot either.
Not a word in the press. Why? Then you need to get their stories figured out so that everybody could be on the same page about what happened. Tim's probably crapping bricks right now because I'm still at large and he knows what I can do. And he knows I know where all the buried skeletons are. So I will be shot on sight. You can bet on that. If you want me to turn myself in, then I need it to be directly to you. He's writing to Kash Patel here. And then I need to be held in a military prison in the Middle East, or at least somewhere on a military ship. They have guns everywhere. They can get anybody, he's saying. What? So has anybody investigated? Has anybody cleared Tim Walz over this? You know, a lot of people are asking these questions on the internet, saying it's a hell of a coincidence. With the fraud being exposed in Tim Walz's Minnesota, only one Democrat voted to stop health care for illegals, one of 67, Melissa Hortman. She was the deciding vote. Then she was killed. And it's almost like she knew it was coming. People are
Yeah.
resurfacing.
No, she
this
definitely
clip of Melissa
seemed
Hortman
terrified.
sounding terrified, voice cracking, shaking, shivering.
And again, at first, I mistook it for her being upset that she did what she morally had to do, her job, to represent the people of Minnesota, and voted with the other side. My hat's off to her. She's a damn hero. And not because she voted with Republicans, but because she did what she thought was right for the people that she represents. That's something we don't get from a lot of representatives today, left or right.
In Minneapolis, after voting to kill healthcare for illegals. Again, Vance Bollinger was appointed. Here's Tim Walz's signature to this board. Melissa Hortman's death directly after voting to not give illegal immigrants money in Minnesota makes a lot more sense after the massive billion-dollar scandal came out.
Yeah.
She's the only Democrat in the state to vote no. Remember when Melissa Hortman was murdered for voting against health care in Minnesota? 5 days later, after this vote, her and her husband were murdered by a Tim Walz protege. I'm not sure if he's a Tim Walz protege, but he definitely has a lot of connections to Tim Walz.
Yeah.
And in his letter, he blames Tim Walz.
A
So
Tim
has
Walz
anybody investigated
appointee.
this? She knew about the multi-billion-dollar welfare scam and tried to stop it. Now she's dead. The fraud being exposed in Minnesota.
And this is why we only get corrupt politicians, because the few good ones that stick their neck out, that do their actual jobs, stick their neck out for the people that they represent, they usually end up dead.
The only person to vote against illegals having health care is Melissa Hortman. She was the deciding vote. Isn't that interesting? I think it is. I think it absolutely is. So, I mean, very strange. Obviously, Elon Musk is saying that Tim Walz deserves to be in prison.
He
Tim
does.
wanted me to
He
kill,
does.
it says.
At the very
his own
least, he does
handwriting.
not need to be governor
So
anymore.
I don't
he
know.
needs to be
I mean,
ousted.
like, has Tim Walz ever been asked a question about this?
No, because every time he gets asked any kind of question that asking his involvement or if he knew about any of the fraud or the murder of Melissa Hortman or anything, he always, Donald Trump called me a retard. It's because you're retarded.
Tim Walz ordered him to do it. He said Tim Walz ordered him to do it and that he's been used as some sort of plant. His claims are extraordinary. Like, at the very least, in this situation, with so much that we've learned, can we at least ask some questions? Don't we owe it to the deceased? Here's Melissa Hortman, ladies and gentlemen. This is the clip that's going so viral of her sounding just scared as hell, barely able to keep her composure.
Hey, Happy
knowing-
New Year, Shapeshifter.
Well,
I will
did
be
she
on
just
tomorrow
know that
morning,
She voted
by the
herself
way.
a death sentence? I'm not sure. With so many billions of dollars at stake, I bet she did. Here you go.
I know that people will be hurt by that vote, and we worked very hard to try to get a budget deal that wouldn't include that provision.
DFL Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman emotional.
Like, she, again, yeah, it seemed emotional because she had split from the party, again, to do what was right for the people of Minnesota. But now, in hindsight, after her death, she very much seems like she knows it's coming. She did what was right, and they killed her for it. I very much look. I don't subscribe to a lot of conspiracy theories, but as we all know from the last 5-6 years, what's the difference between a fact and a conspiracy theory? About 6 months.
Following the House's adjournment from a special session Monday, Hortman was the lone DFL lawmaker to cast a vote to cut Minnesota Care access for undocumented immigrants. It's a move she made with a heavy heart.
I did what leaders do. I stepped up, and I got the job done for the people of Minnesota.
You
The
did.
bill was
You
deeply
100% did.
unpopular with members of the DFL caucus. Members have repeatedly expressed frustration that the bill was part
That
of
bitch.
a compromise, one that would ensure
Is
the
that Rashida
necessary
Tlaib?
GOP votes to pass the rest of the state budget.
We are tremendously disappointed and gut-wrenched at this decision, at this compromise that compromises our communities that are most vulnerable.
Hortman knows she let down her own caucus members with the vote.
They're right to be mad at me. I think some of them are pretty angry.
This is more connection to the Tim Walz Minnesota Somali fraud. So this all started. They about what was it, a year ago now? They were trying to pass a bill to allow health care for illegal immigrants. Not immigrants, illegal immigrants. And this lady stood firm and she sided with the Republicans because she did what was right for the actual citizens of Minnesota. And I will never be convinced otherwise. And I used to think that this was her holding back tears because she went against the movement that she very much believed in. And now I think it's that she knew that what would happen to her afterwards, that she would either be ousted from the party or killed, because she was murdered by some guy that used to work for Tim Walz. He was a Republican, but he was handpicked by Tim Walz, and he even confessed that Tim Walz put him up to it in a written letter to Kash Patel.
I think that their job was to
That has
make
been
folks who
authenticated, by
voted
the way.
for that bill feel like crap, and I think that they succeeded.
Either way, I'm sitting here simply saying justice for Melissa Hortman. A lot of Democrats were trying to frame this as right-wing violence. It's clearly not. This individual is a No King's killer, worked for Tim Walz, and his wife worked for Tim Walz, was clearly a Democrat, was clearly close to the governor, and then says the governor asked him to kill her. Again, all I'm asking for is, can somebody ask him a few questions about this?
Right. Yeah, just anybody, please. But as we all know, Tim Walz, if he's ever asked anything about any of the horrible stuff that's happening under his watch in Minnesota, he's going to say, oh, Donald Trump called me a retard. Someone drove by my house and said I was retarded. Yeah, yes, sir, you are retarded, and so is your daughter. She's probably going to be even worse than you, especially after, hopefully, you're arrested for conspiracy to commit murder, and a whole lot of fraud happening under your watch, probably under your direction, or at the very least, you didn't do anything about it. But could you not have known about it? No, absolutely not. Not this much. The amount of fraud was more than the GDP of the country that it's going to. But again, that's just what I believe in. Again, I don't subscribe to many conspiracy theories, but this one I like. I believe in it. But that's going to be it for today, guys. I very much appreciate you. You guys go out there and have a very happy, fun New Year's Eve. I'm going to sit at home with the people that I love. And, yeah, I will be back on tomorrow morning. I'll probably do a slightly longer show. I've got a couple things I want to go over, a couple of Nux videos maybe, or another story or two that I've missed this week just because my show's so much shorter now that I'm going in earlier. But I will do that show, and then I'll probably do a gaming live stream as well right after it. That will be on all the things, YouTube, Twitch, and Kick. But yeah, y'all have a happy, safe New Year. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, and definitely don't do anything I would do. You live in that little gray area right there. Okay, that's where you live. But take care, y'all. Take care of yourselves, and we will see you